Always exciting in the off season, especially early December when people first start to hit the portal, especially when you got coaching changes coming and people are all excited and amped up on Twitter. A lot of Nebraska fans think that the players that are being lost through the portal are nobodies, no big deal. Some people are a little bit more concerned. I fancy myself someone who is a bit in the middle, I think there's reason to be skeptical about Matt Rule's process and plan if he isn't able to keep all of the guys in the program who he initially thought would be people that would stay for the long haul. But at the same time, it's college football in 2020 going into 2025, and you've got to be able to pivot. Some have called me a crash out. Some say I'm overreacting. I think that's all nonsense. I actually tweeted this morning when I first saw this news from Prince Will Uman Mielen on Hayes Fawcett's platform. I said that I called out a mass exodus yesterday, and people tried to tell me this was expected in terms of transfers because they had to cut players down from the 150. I then went on to say, again, these are not the guys Matt Rule was referring to when talking about trimming to 105. I don't believe anything that I said there was crazy. I think that Matt Rule thought they would cut down 40-something players, and it wouldn't be the likes of James Williams or Prince Will, Uman Mielen, Jamari Butler, Makai Bayer. I think he was talking about some guys who probably weren't immediate impact players. And there have been arguments all day. Well, those guys aren't immediate impact. Their reps went down, blah, blah, blah. Okay, these are pieces that are being developed. They are depth pieces now who will eventually turn into starters, and they are lost. Now, again, I'm not going to say that it's doomsday and that the world is on fire and Nebraska won't be able to bounce back from this or find other guys in the portal. But I am going to say once again, these weren't the players that he was referring to. So no, I'm not a crash out. No, I'm not hysterical. No, I'm not overreacting. But if you go and read the comments on my tweet, you can see there are plenty of people overreacting to what I had to say. So welcome to the stream, guys. Good evening from California, where I'm far away from the chaos of college football in Nebraska, but I'm still getting messages. Today I got a picture of a plane in Lincoln, a Florida State plane. The guy's like, hey, this was at Lincoln Airport today. It was here for about 15 minutes. I was like, well, we know what that was there for. Fortunately, at least up until this point, doesn't have a man named Terrence Knighton on it. It was only Tony White, the one we expected to leave. We're still on T-Night watch. Got to see if he's going to get the contract he's looking for or if he's going to bounce out. Not really sure. It's crazy because that was a reputable news reporter who did, I don't want to say break the news or post out the rumor, but it did get fans, including myself, in a frenzy yesterday because we thought, man, if T-Night leaves, you could lose a lot of key guys who were tied to him. And as we've seen so far, some have left. So to recap really quick, just to catch you up to speed if you've been at work all day, not tracking what's been going on. First up was Daniel Kalen, 10 a.m. this morning, entered his name into the portal. Not a surprise. Daniel Kalen was a guy who came to Nebraska because he was part of a recruiting class that was so dedicated to jumping in with Matt Rule and wanted to see if they could make it work. Obviously felt like he could compete with Dylan Raiola for that starting job, or at least look like he could turn into the quarterback of the future. For whatever reason, he didn't believe that he would have a chance, and Nebraska's going to have to move forward without him. In my opinion, it's a culture hit because the players like Daniel, and Daniel was obviously a team player from Nebraska, but they're going to have other players who either fit the offense better, have a higher ceiling, or could contribute a little bit earlier than he would have been able to. Speaking of that, you've got TJ Lateef hopefully signing, and Nebraska can start to get some more quarterbacks in. We'll see how it goes, though, with Heinrich Harburg and whoever else will be competing with Dylan to be really the second string quarterback next season. Next up, you had Prince Will. Talk about him for a second. This is a loss. I don't care how you cut it. He was a freshman All-American. People say, well, his production dipped last year. Here's the deal. He was playing behind MJ Sherman, who had his best season of his career. MJ Sherman played spectacular and didn't have to come off the field as often. Prince Will was still going to develop into a starter at Nebraska, in my opinion. And this is a huge one. This is a problem when you lose guys like this because he's got the body type where he can move around and play different positions. He can play at linebacker. He can play up on the line. He would fit for any defensive style they want to run. And it's unfortunate that he's leaving. Not sure if he was tied to Tony White or what the vibe was, but he is gone. So no matter what they try to tell you, this is not a good loss. Now, I'm not saying that you can't come back from losing players like this, but I am going to tell you, you do not want to lose them when you are going and building a team the way that Matt Rule has been building over the last 2 seasons or off seasons. Good losses, when we're talking about trimming fat, are guys who you've never heard of before, or guys who weren't going to be able to turn into starting caliber players. Like Stephon Thompson was an acceptable loss He was a second string linebacker who would have played last season, but unfortunately he probably wasn't going to make the cut since they had to make room for some younger guys. Anyway, this was a loss. Most recently in the last, what did this say? 3:37. So this happened about an hour ago, 50 minutes ago. James Williams, another very promising defensive end at Nebraska. He is now in the portal. This one is really interesting for one reason, because I was under the impression that he was tied to Terrence Knighton. He's referred to him as a father figure. He was on the sideline crying with him after a big play he made during the year. He's talked about him in press conferences, and James Williams was kind of a trigger player in my mind, where it's like, okay, if James leaves, that's going to be kind of the snowball that causes other guys to leave, because it ultimately means T. Knight will not be back. But we haven't heard any news about T. Knight. I'm interested to see what happens with that over these next couple of days. I would assume what's going on with that is Florida State's trying to put together an offer to pull him away from Nebraska, because they do understand the impact he had when you're talking about a defensive front that was absolutely dominant and didn't give up a single touchdown at home by the run game of any opponent. So anyway, this was a triggering player for me because of what it means. He's still a stud. You don't want to lose guys like this either. And yeah, people will probably tell you, no big deal, not that big of a loss. The coping is unbelievable. It's okay to cope, I get it. But to downplay it so much is ridiculous. How about this? Let's all be reasonable today. I'm going to start. I'll be the first reasonable one. Yes, it's a disaster that Nebraska's losing so many key pieces of their defense. Yes, it is a disaster. No, it doesn't mean Nebraska can't come back and have a positive season next year. They can still find ways to replace guys in the portal. They can still find ways to build a better defense, whatever we want to twist it into be to make us all feel better. But it's okay to admit reality, and that's that these losses aren't good. So yeah, if you're sad about it, I get it. I am too. These are guys you would hope would have stayed longer, guys you thought were producing early on in their career, and we're not going to get to see them at their peak because these were younger players, freshmen and sophomores, who now in their junior and senior years will decide to play elsewhere. So that's the portal news. Then you go on to the coaching hire news. So I think his name's DeKel. Is that his name? How do I pronounce it? I actually pulled up the pronunciation. DeKel. So DeKel Shorts, I don't even know if it's official yet. It's definitely not official, actually, but this is going to happen. We actually pinpointed him yesterday on the stream. Imagine that. I said, if you guys want to know who the receivers coach could be, let's go and look at who the last receivers coach was for Dana Holgorsen when he was at Houston. And it was DeKel Shorts. I actually pulled up this exact same picture of him on yesterday's stream and said, look for him to be the guy. And yeah, it just so happens he's going to be the guy. So DeKel Shorts, he was the wide receivers coach at Kentucky this season. He played at West Virginia under Dana Holgorsen between 2013 and 2016. He had a 528-yard season, followed up with a 900-yard season and 5 touchdowns. So impressive receiver. Ended up, I think, on a practice squad in the NFL for a year, and then jumped into coaching. So proven track record as a player, 29 years old, a little bit older than Garrett McGuire. And these are some of the receivers he's coached up. So if you look here, the big name on the board is Tank Dell. A 1,300-yard season with 90 catches back in, 2021, followed up with a almost 1,400-yard season the very next year. Look at the distribution, though. 500-yard receiver, well, almost 600, then another 600, almost 500, and then a 1,400-yard receiver. So they've had experience, him and Dana Holgorsen, developing wide receiver rooms, and hopefully we'll be able to see some of that. Here's the 2023 season, which was the last one for Holgorsen. I believe he was fired after this year. Yeah, they only had 4 wins that season. But anyway, it seems like a good coach who we can get excited about. This was his receivers room this year at Kentucky, 2024. They were a terrible team. Kentucky went 4-8. Yep, not a bowl team. That's why he's able to come over to Nebraska. I believe he is already in Lincoln. But Dane Key was their leading receiver with 715 yards. Barryon Brown, 361 yards. And then they had a couple others go for 300 and 100. Now, the key here with DeKel is that people talk about him as a recruiter. And when you go and look at what people said about, all these new coaches who could potentially come in, imagine they could be like a Kurt Signetti. They could go and pull from their old previous roster or their old relationships, and Nebraska can reload even faster with new coaches coming in. Totally understand that. So let's look to someone he could pull right away. You've got Barryon Brown. So he was at Kentucky for, I think, the last 3 years, started as a true freshman, And he's now going to enter the portal, it sounds like. It says the expectation is that he will. So I'm not going to be surprised if he does. And if he does pop up on the radar, I'm sure Nebraska will make a push for him. We'll see. Maybe they got other guys on their radar. But here was his first 3 seasons at Kentucky. And I'm just showing you this to give you an idea of some guys who are going to be out there that Nebraska could potentially target. So 600-yard season as a freshman with 50 receptions. I believe that was a Wan'Dale Robinson year. Was Wan'Dale Robinson there in 2022? Maybe that was 2021. I can't remember. Whatever. 2023, over 500 yards. This year, his lowest number at 360. He changed quarterbacks and things obviously didn't go his way. But regardless, he's a good receiver, talented guy who Nebraska would absolutely like to have. Right now, the whole situation in Nebraska is the receiver deal. And you know, that's the biggest issue with keeping Dylan Raiola. Were they going to be able to convince him and his family that they would be able to go and get some receivers? And the hope right now is that they will. I'm going to jump to chat in 1 second here, but I do want to show a couple more things because we are talking about recruiting season and signing day does start tomorrow. There are 2 names that people are tracking, and Nebraska fans have been on their ass, let me tell you. First up is Cortez Mills, the wide receiver commit to Oklahoma right now. He has a 72% chance to flip to Nebraska, and I was extremely confident in that. But then OU went and hired, what's his name, Arbuckle? Yeah, Ben Arbuckle, the offensive coordinator from Washington State. Washington State had some serious numbers. They had John Mateer, and he threw for over 3,000 yards. They had a Kyle Williams go for over 1,000. So anyway, there were some question marks that would Cortez Mills still come to Nebraska, since it was rumored that he was going to commit today, and he didn't. And right now it feels like, in my head at least, based on some of the people I've talked to, that he's still going to sign with Nebraska. So the hope is he signs tomorrow morning. It's up in the air, and I've heard people say it's a 50-50 shot, but based on some of the things I've seen and been sent, I'm going to go with Cortez Mills to Nebraska. But who knows? Very well could end up at OU. The other player on the list is Michael Terry. He's the #1 athlete in the country, top 50 player nationally, receiver, expected to go to Texas or Nebraska. Let's see the RPM. It says 96.2% to Texas, 1.2% to Nebraska. And it sounds like Oregon tried to make a push at the final hour. Don't think Oregon's going to be in it. I also don't think Nebraska's going to be in it. My assumption is Michael Terry is going to Texas. So Michael Terry might be gone, but there will be plenty of guys in the transfer portal. And it kind of feels like Nebraska was 1 year away, or at least one successful season away, from luring a guy who, like Michael Terry, is a borderline 5-star to jump in with Dylan Raiola and really hope that they can turn things around. So unfortunately, they weren't able to get this one, but in the future, I'm sure Nebraska will land a top 50 receiver or skill player. Jackson, thank you for the $2 super chat. Thank you for being a member. Let's hope we get Terry and Mills tomorrow morning. And I'm glad we were able to cover that before I even had to read your super chat. I got you the info you came for, brother. Those are my thoughts on those two, and I would love to see either one of them. Cortez Mills paired with Isaiah Mosey and whoever else they pull out of the portal would be a home run. Corey, thank you for the $5 super chat. The D-line was as dominant as they were, due in large because of Ty and Nash. All of these transfers blow, but how hard was it to coach that group? Here's the thing. A lot of the D-linemen at Nebraska who've been successful these last 2 seasons, they weren't part of a successful unit before that. Go back to 2021, 2022. Did Nebraska have that great of a D-line? 2021, you could argue they were pretty decent, but the defensive front has never been as strong as what it was under Tony White and with that entire core they had. And part of what made them so dominant is they had that skill and they were able to rotate them so consistently. So guys wouldn't get worn out, wouldn't get tired. Obviously, you had a key piece in Ty Robinson, another, and Nash Hutmaker. But I do think that that you want to keep your defensive line coach who's proven it now for 2 years, and you want to keep as many players as you can who you've been developing. You know, the development aspect is what Matt Rule preaches. And again, it's not the end of the world if he isn't able to keep every guy. I'm not saying it is, but you want to keep the guys who you're trying to develop because that's the blueprint. And when you have to stray away from your blueprint, it's a problem because you now have to do something different. And the goal wasn't to have to go and hit the portal. The goal wasn't to have to go and act like Kurt Signetti or like Deion Sanders. The goal was, we've got a plan. We're going to keep these guys in the program. And this is another argument that's total nonsense. People will say to me, well, Connor, every time you see a defensive coordinator change, you lose your whole defense. That's total BS. I was actually talking to a Minnesota fan today, and he doubled down on the fact that when Minnesota lost their defensive coordinator, they didn't lose their entire defense. So there is an issue when you lose a bunch of your guys, and to downplay it is so ridiculous. Now, I'm not going to overreact, and I'm not crashing out despite what the reports on Twitter say, but I am not going to downplay this shit. it's a problem. And Matt Rule's going to have to adjust and pivot. And he's going to. I have faith in Matt Rule. Love Matt Rule. I think he's a coach who knows when it's time to make a change and do something different. And he realizes what's going on with the current landscape of college football. So I've got all the faith in the world that everything is going to work out. Don't take what I'm saying as the world's on fire and nothing's going to work itself out. That's so ridiculous. I'm the pinnacle of optimism, okay? I'm the one you look to when you want to have some good news spewed your way. I'm not sitting here complaining and moping around. I don't make videos in my bathroom. No offense, John. Pete, thank you for the $5 super chat. Wait for the dust to settle and see what our losses are. Then we need to regroup and attack the weaknesses. No more nice guy. Time to be ruthless. 100%. I think that's Matt Rule's mentality. I think you hit it spot on. He's going to wait to get through this portal season, wait to get through bowl season. Once he's got his coaches and his key pieces in place, he knows who he's going to attack in the portal. Hopefully, they're able to pull some studs out of there, really get this offense back in shape, because you want something for Dana Holgorsen to work with that can immediately average over 28 points a game. I mean, that seems like a lot, right? But at least this year, what they average? I don't even know the answer to that. Let's pull it up. Nebraska, total offense. Let's see what they average. I should have known this off top, but I haven't done a video in a few days, so hard to know. Okay, points. That's yards. I want points. Scoring offense. I'll share this with you guys so you can see. I'm going to minimize your chat, Pete. Scoring offense. Nebraska's got to be near the back, right? Nope, not that low. They're on page 2 then. So Nebraska averaged almost 24 points a game this year. You can see at 23.8. Now it's a little bit inflated because of their UTEP win with, I think they've had a 40-point day. And then, what was the other win that was big? Oh, Wisconsin, 40-something point day. But I still believe Nebraska getting up to like 28 points a game is a totally fair expectation, if not more. They should improve by a touchdown. If they improved by a touchdown, it would be at 30.8 next season, which I think is totally doable given their schedule. Nebraska, as we looked at yesterday, does not have a crazy gauntlet. They're not playing a bunch of problem teams who they're not going to be able to beat. They're playing a totally reasonable schedule. So those are my thoughts on the no more Mr. Nice Guy. Matt Rule's got to really hunker down and get some of these good guys out of the portal if they want to go and win today. Clint, thank you for the $2 super chat. Which young D-line guys should we watch for in the bowl? You know, I think the obvious answer is Riley Van Poppel. He played against Iowa, and I thought he did a pretty good job in that game. I think he was paired up with Nash Hutmaker or Ty Robinson, one of the two. And when I was watching it, I keyed in on him, obviously, and I was like, damn, Van Poppel had a really good stop. He had a couple of them, and I thought he looks just like those other two defensive tackles right next to him. So I was impressed by that. Van Poppel's number 1 to watch for. Number 2 to watch for is Elijah Judy. It sounds like he's going to come back. He's kind of doubled down on Twitter because he's doing some peer recruiting yesterday and today. So I'd watch for both of them. If Terrence Knighton's gone, it's really going to change it up. You know, I don't know who's going to leave if he leaves. I'm kind of tying Cam Lenhart and Keanu Davis as well as James Williams to Terrence Knighton, but we'll have to see how that pans out. Regardless, I think the two are Elijah Judy and Van Poppel as the interior defensive linemen. I really wonder what's going to happen with Nash and Ty. Do those guys come back to play in the bowl game? You would think they'd want to, but now if their entire team's not there next to them, do they really want to waste a day? Who knows? You would hope, but we'll have to see. Let's see. Swill, thank you for the $5 shoot. Your name just threw me off. Swill Myth. Thank you for the $5 super chat. I wonder if the players are hitting the portal as an insurance policy just in case they don't like the new defensive coordinator. You know, that very well could be a thing. I don't know. It's, I think, an alarm when they all enter the way they did and at the pace they did. But it could be that. I would be absolutely shocked if these guys all of a sudden just came back out. They're like, yeah, we were just trying to make sure that we got the right defensive coordinator. But why? Why wouldn't they go and talk to Matt Rule? Why wouldn't they talk to their position coaches? Why would they just jump in right away? Who knows? I don't think you need an insurance policy. The portal officially opens on December 9th. Today is December 3rd. So they have 6 more days to really wait and feel things out. Just feels like an overreaction. But regardless, they got to do what they got to do. So no matter how that plays out, if guys want to come back, I have zero hard feelings. I hope they do come back. I like a lot of the players Nebraska has. And I think regardless whether they're here or not, they're going to go and get some good players to fill in where they need. But we'll have to see. I think there's a lot of overreactions today on what the portal players mean. what their impact will be if they're gone, and then what Nebraska can do in the portal in terms of pulling studs out. People act like there are all these guys in the portal who you can just go and get, and without a doubt, they're going to have better defensive linemen than who they have this year, which I think is a little bit ridiculous. It's you never know with some portal players, and they've got to fit the culture. And if they come in, are they coming for a paycheck? Do they want to come be a part of what Nebraska's building? Do they buy into the Matt Rule mentality? I mean, there are so many variables you're talking about, and if a guy doesn't fit into all of them, sometimes it just doesn't pan out. And then you see a guy who transferred in. Stephon Thompson's a prime example. He had a great career at Syracuse. He comes to Nebraska and he was kind of average. And you're like, well, we would have thought he would have been a lot better than he was, than he did perform. And you're like, well, that's just the way it is in the portal. You don't know who's going to fit, and you don't know what's right until you get him on the field. So a lot of risk involved. Speaking of risk, we got Risky here with a $5 super chat. Thank you, brother. He says, losing a lot of players / coaches before the bowl game, when that was the bottom goal for the year, is insane to me. So here's the thing, Risky. I don't believe that the players felt like the bowl game was their goal this year. I believe the players felt like this was kind of an 8-win floor. I believe Matt Rule thought that as well. And when you're talking about an 8-win floor versus what you ended up with 6, you're kind of disappointed in how things played out. I think if you're a defensive player, you're really frustrated with the way the offense played, and they kind of let you down. Same thing on special teams. And you might look at your coaches and say, we talked about chasing 3 all year. Everything was about chasing 3. And then it comes down to 3 against Iowa, and we can't win. It comes down to 3 in other games, like Illinois. It came down to 3. If Nebraska would have made that field goal, they would have beaten Illinois that day. It comes down to 3 in multiple games, and they didn't get it done. Or it comes down to close losses, like against Ohio State. They don't get it done. And I think players start to doubt or second guess, and they're like, well, why am I doing this? Why am I investing all this time and emotional energy when I'm not getting the same return that I deserve? And I think that's just kind of the name of the game, but at the same time, I get why they don't want to participate any longer. They're frustrated, they want new energy, and they want to put their name in as soon as possible so that they make sure they get a spot. I think it's really hard if you're a player when you're hearing about the portal being impacted and how, there will be 5,000 players in the portal, and unless you're a superstar, you're not getting to one of the top schools. Or if you're late to the party and schools already have their roster set, you're not getting in. So have fun at Youngstown State. I think that fear keeps guys, and they're like, I got to get out of here as soon as possible and make sure that I don't get left behind. That could be part of it. We'll have to see. Not sure. I don't talk to the players, but if I did, I'm sure that's what they would tell me. It's a guess, though. Nate, thank you for the $2 super chat. He says, is Jim Leonard a legit option for DC? The DC thing is so interesting. I don't know what they'll do about DC, and I think it's anybody's guess at this point. I think if a Rule is smart, I say that, but I think he could go either way, and it's a good choice, right? Matt Rule has an idea in his head and a vision for where he's taking this thing. So no matter what he chooses, I think is the right play. It's really about I trust Rule, and it's less about I need to nitpick and say what I think he needs to do, right? So if I'm just buying into Rule, whether he hires Phil Snow and John Butler and makes them co-DCs, or whether he goes out and makes an external hire, I think either way was, a good move. I do like the idea of Jim Leonard. I don't know if it's a legit option. You would think it's somewhat legit because if he wants to get back into being a coordinator, this is a great opportunity. It's a great time. He gets to follow up, on a defense who's had an exceptional 2 years under Tony White, top 20, and then, number 20, and then number 13 the year before. So, yeah. I would love it if I was a DC to be able to go into a situation like Nebraska, especially where you're paired with an offensive coordinator like Dana Holgorsen, who can give you the opportunity to not be forced to win every game. When he was at Wisconsin, obviously, he was more worried about winning the game with defense, less with offense. At Nebraska, that may not be the same. So we'll see. I would love the idea, but I think it's anybody's guess at this point. RJ, thank you for the $2 super chat. Outside of Raiola, who are must keeps? Man, that's a great question. So if you're talking about rebuilding at Nebraska and continuing on, I'm going to minimize your chat. If you're talking about building at Nebraska, must keeps, you've got to keep Ja'Cory Barney. That's one of them. Ja'Cory Barney was the leading receiver on this team this year. Let's pull it up real quick. So that's Nebraska 2024. Like twisted around my mic trying to do this. Okay. Leading receiver, Ja'Cory Barney had 52 catches, 430 yards. He also had 10 carries for 130. So when you talk about bringing in a wide receivers coach, and an offensive coordinator who have experience with a utility player such as Ja'Cory Barney, Tank Dell, Tavon Austin, you want to make sure that you have a player who's got experience, who's ready to play that role. And Ja'Cory Barney's already done it. He has chemistry. He understands what Nebraska wants to do. He understands the Big Ten now after playing there for a year. I think Ja'Cory's an absolute must keep. You don't want to lose a guy like this when it's so hard to find them out of the portal. Not only is it hard to find them, it's expensive. If Ja'Cory Barney went into the portal, he could command a lot of money right now because other teams are so desperate to get him on their roster. And then Nebraska in turn would have to pay him more, which I'm sure they're going to compensate him fairly. But key player is him. Second key player right here, you're looking at him, Emmett Johnson. This season, even last, he was never utilized the right way. He was a third down back, but didn't get enough play until the very end. He finished with 102 carries, 500 plus yards. Then look at receiving. 35 receptions for 262. He averaged over 5 yards on rushes and over 7 on receiving, and those are really respectable numbers. You think Emmett Johnson, who's shown a lot of promise as an underclassman, can develop into, he's not going to be the full-time every down back, but he will develop into a guy who gets 10 plus carries a game, maybe 5 plus receptions a game in some cases. So Emmett Johnson is a key. Another one I would say is Jalen Lloyd. Jalen Lloyd, I think, was underutilized by the last staff, and I don't know why he was. There were plenty of times where he came in for key moments and had big plays. I think back to USC specifically. There was another one against Colorado. He came back to the ball. It was huge. What else? There were a few plays that were massive. He had one against, was it Northern Iowa? And I think it got intercepted, but he was in position to make that play. It just got ripped out. So there have been plenty of plays Jalen made, and I just think he's not getting utilized the right way. If he comes back, he'll be a guy who can be maximized by a better receiving coach and offensive staff. Next up, I think Carter Nelson's a big one. Carter Nelson is a dog. He wants to play. He'll do anything the team asks of him. I don't think that he played as much as he wanted to this season. They thought he might be featured a bit more, but he had 10 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown. I thought we saw glimpses of what's going to be, a really great receiver who's got a big body, thought to be a tight end, but has the speed to be a receiver. So hopefully he can develop, put some size on, and he could be in the starting rotation depending on what receivers they bring in from the portal. Another name, Dante Dowdell is pretty clutch. He was a big-bodied back who's only going to get better. He was a sophomore this season, played in every game. I think actually started almost every game. So I like Dante Dowdell. Not as crucial, in my opinion, as some of these other guys we've talked about, but still a big one. Let's see, down this list, a must keep outside of Dylan Raiola. Really, you go down to the depth and guys that they've recruited, like a Grant Brix is a must. You want to develop your star players who you've recruited from high school. Grant Brix was a 4-star last year. He was the number 1 or number 2 tackle or guard in the country. I can't remember. I think he was a tackle, exterior offensive lineman. But yeah, you want to keep some of the younger guys. So that's the offense. In terms of defense, I don't even like to talk about it because I'm afraid any guy on the D could leave. I think you look to your 2 true freshmen, or maybe 3 true freshmen. There are 3 names that come to mind because you want to keep the young guys. The older guys, it would suck to lose, right? Like some of them it would. But with the young guys, you've gotten so much production out of them already that they're Big Ten ready to go next year. Vincent Shavers is one, played a ton. Willis McGahee Jr. played a ton. Keona Davis played a ton. They played more as the season went on, and they made big plays. Willis McGahee's the one I look to as a guy who he's shown he's a massive playmaker. He had a strip sack against Colorado. He had another strip sack against, was it Wisconsin? Or maybe it wasn't a strip sack. Maybe he just forced an interception. I can't remember, but he did make multiple big plays. Keona Davis was hyped up by all the coaches, and he obviously showed it on the field this year. So you want to keep your younger guys. Those are the ones I look to where Nebraska's got to find a way to keep them on the on the roster. It's funny about Dylan. Okay, this is a cold take, and people probably won't like it. I'm actually of the belief that if Dylan did leave, because I have thought about this, there were legitimate reasons to believe that he could leave this year. There are multiple schools trying extremely hard to pull him, and they're doing everything they can, and they're honing in on the fact that Nebraska hasn't had that offensive success and they don't have the weapons around him and he's wasting his time, which I totally get. And people are worried or were worried. I don't know what the current state is as of 4:57 p.m. on December 3rd. But in the last few days, they've been worried. If Dylan Raiola wasn't at Nebraska, I do believe that Dana Holgorsen would go out and find a quarterback in the portal who he could work with. Now, am I saying that would be a good option? No. Am I saying I want that to happen? Absolutely not. But Dana Holgerson, in my opinion, is such a strong coordinator that he would find someone now in the portal era who he'd be able to work with and develop into, you know, serviceable or even better than serviceable. So we'll have to see. Ryle is a must keep, obviously. I'm trying to cushion the blow in case a worse comes to worse because, you know, you never know what happens with these guys. It's always tough. Let's see. I'm reading some more of the chats, guys. Just trying to get caught up. Sports Studio says Barney is thrilled that Dana is staying. That's absolutely true. Barney posted up right when he saw it. I've seen a bunch of let's see. Emojis. Oh yeah. Nathan was talking about how there are a bunch of our commits, Nebraska commits, posting up on Twitter a bunch of GIFs and emojis and such, and they're basically saying they're excited for what's to come. And I think that could be, the cryptic tweet could be this one, for either a Cortez Mills staying, another recruiting flip that we're not talking about, possibly T-Knight staying. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot that it could mean. I'm just not sure what it is. I saw this today. I wanted to pull up. There were actually a couple things. So Chuba Purdy is back in the portal. He was at Nevada this year, was not the starter. And he is going to jump back in. So unfortunate for Chuba Purdy. He has not found a landing spot yet. Hoping for the best from him. Let's minimize this so I don't have much chaos on my screen. Okay, you had the honorable mention All Big Ten with, what is that, 2, 4, 6, 7 guys. Malcolm Hartzog Jr., fan favorite. Deshaun Singleton, stud safety. Brian Buschini, stud punter. Ben Scott, the starting center. John Bullock, way better start to the season than end. Nash Hutmaker, stud D lineman. And Bryce Benhart, right tackle. That was the honorable mention list. Notice Sierra Wright is not on there. That is one player who I am surprised didn't make honorable mention. I thought Sierra Wright was one of Nebraska's, if not their best player down the stretch on defense, up there with Ty Robinson. Again, I say best player because of the plays he made, the game-changing situations that he put Nebraska in. You think back to Illinois specifically with the strip sack. Then you think to USC with the pick 6. You go to USC with the field goal block. There was another game that I'm trying to remember where he had a couple big plays, but regardless, Sierra Wright not getting honorable mention because he didn't start the entire season makes sense, but at the same time didn't seem right. The only guy who made the first, second, or third team was Ty Robinson. Matt Rule, famous for saying Ty Robinson was playing at a first team All Big Ten level, and now he is demoted to third team. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think he was such a stud and impact player all year. I think he's probably more second team than third, but whatever, you take what you can get. And Ty Robinson's services were appreciated while he was at Nebraska, I'll tell you that. He was a fan favorite, and I really enjoyed watching him the entire time he was there. So that's that. That's what I wanted to talk to you guys about. Those were my initial thoughts. And yeah. Let's see here. I want to get caught up on what you guys want to talk about. Dash Camera says, how many sacks did we take this year? More than 0, because that's how many we took when we had the best O-line in the NCAA. You guys are going back and forth talking about the O-line. Brett's talking about bowl games, looks like. You know, the Wheelman says Pinstripe Bowl is trash. Who wants to go to New York in the winter? I mean, a lot of people like going to New York for Christmas, brother, right? Don't they? I mean, I've been to New York for Christmas when it's cold. It's fun to get all bundled up. But at the same time, I don't live in Nebraska or the Midwest, so my one time a year in the snow is kind of an adventure, you know? Nick says, with Williams going to the portal, does T-Knight leave? You know, I'm totally confused on that. I thought they were directly tied to each other. So if T-Knight was going to stay, I would think James Williams was going to stay. But I'm confused so far, and I don't know what to say right now. It's totally up in the air. There are a lot of things that are up in the air. There are a lot of transfer guys, in my opinion, who are up in the air until we know more. And yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Let's see. Nickel Toe said stud punter. Yes, I did call Brian Buschini a stud punter. He was inconsistent at times, but he made plays as well. And he was a net positive for Nebraska. He had one season where he was hurt, I think 2023, pretty banged up, had a regression year. But outside of that, I liked what he did. Had a huge play against, who was it? Rutgers, huge play, game-changing play on the fake punt pass to Jalen Lloyd for a first down. So, yeah. Tyson Terry just posted a big picture of him with GBR. Don't think he's flipping. Tyson Terry is not one that I'm worried about flipping. Alessio says Michael Terry, started following our new wide receivers coach today. That is intriguing. I did see that. Michael Terry still flirting with the idea of Nebraska is bizarre to me because I think it's such a lock that he goes to Texas, but I have no idea. So it's not like I have any insider information on that. It's a total guess, and we'll have to see if there is any chance. But we'll know tomorrow morning. I think it said 8:15 my time, which would be 10:15 Nebraska time. He's going to announce his commitment at the high school. Or not commitment, he's going to sign, I believe, at the high school. So we'll see. Let's see. Nate's Universe has a take on the transfers. He says, on the transfers, besides Stephon Thompson, they're testing how much others will pay them, I believe. Think about that. Imagine Nebraska has all these players go into the portal, and it was all a big tease just to see how much money they could get. But then Matt Rule and the NIL collective comes back and pays most of them to stay. That would be insanity. And then you've got all these fans who are like, well, we don't want them anyway. We need to clean up the roster. So let's get them out. We don't want them. Pretty funny. Let's see. Fun to watch. With devastating. Johnson stay. Another one from Nate. He said that he saw Daniel Kalen working out wearing Husker stuff. And he wouldn't be shocked if he made a return. GBR Nate. I don't know what to think about the Daniel Kalen deal, right? They're bringing in more quarterbacks. They're going to have a competition next year. Like, they want to put pressure on Dylan, not in a bad way, but you want to make him grow. And to make a quarterback grow, he's got to feel like he's got somebody on his ass who's trying to take over his spot, right? I am still of the belief that Heinrich Haarberg is an NFL talent, not at quarterback. If that's the case, if I'm Heinrich Haarberg, my initial thought this offseason is go to Matt Rule and say, hey, I want to change positions. And Matt Rule would say, okay, well, that would probably make sense since we want to get you on the field more. What do you want to do? He'd probably say, I want to play tight end or whatever role Janiron Bonner played. And in which case, I think he'd be successful. If that does happen, you're now in a bit of a depleted quarterback room. Assume Jalen Gramstead leaves. You're now down to Dylan Raiola and what we thought was going to be Daniel Kalen with TJ Lateef coming in. Now, if you have TJ Lateef and Dylan Raiola, you might have to go and get a guy from the portal. It's really tough to get guys from the portal who are competent quarterbacks when you have a guy in front of them who's obviously not going to lose his job to you in Dylan Raiola. Now, the argument could be, I want to take my chances and I want to go coach for go play for a program with, the story or the history and the prestige Nebraska has, and then hopefully in a worst case scenario, if something happens and I have to play, at least I get my opportunity. So there are guys like that, I'm sure, hanging out around the lower levels. Who knows? Kind of like Jalen Gramstead was, but who might have a little bit more promise than Gramstead did. So maybe they go and find someone like that. I think the Daniel Kalen thing is more so he sees that it'll be really tough to start at Nebraska. He'll only have 1 year, and he'll have plenty of competition for that 1 year trying to win the job. So maybe you go to a smaller school and get a better chance. I don't knock him for leaving. It totally makes sense to me why Daniel Kalen would leave. Let's see. People are talking about Cortez Mills. Again, that's such a toss-up. It's weird. No one really knows. I think other Nebraska recruits are confident in him, but, a lot of the media doesn't know. Let's see. Sports Studios says, how does losing Garrett McGuire impact Michael Terry? I think that actually would help for Michael Terry. I think Michael Terry would be more likely to connect with our new wide receivers coach and offensive staff as opposed to the old one, because the old one, things just didn't work out. For whatever reason, it's hard to pinpoint. Was Garrett McGuire a bad wide receivers coach? Was he too inexperienced? Did he not know what to coach them or how to coach them? I don't know those answers. But what I do know is if you're a receiver in high school looking at the production on the field, you're like, man, this guy Isaiah Nayor or this guy Jamal Banks were supposed to be 700 plus yard receivers, and neither of them got to 500. Like, what happened? Maybe Banks got to 500. I can't remember. I think 400 something. But whatever the point is, if you get a new wide receivers coach in who might have had more success with other receivers and getting them to the pros, i.e. Tank Dell, one of the best receivers to come out of Houston probably ever. And, I mean, is he the best receiver to ever come out of Houston? He's up there. I don't know who else came out of Houston. But now he's on the Houston Texans, stud. So I would think that bodes well for a guy like Michael Terry. But I still think it's a long shot. You know what I mean? M. Schultz says, Connor, some other Nebraska YouTubers are extremely confident in getting Michael Terry. Interesting. I think, yeah, I don't know. I think that people are confident because they see what a lot of recruits are saying, and recruits get excited, and I'm sure that's part of the reason. I don't know. I know that the national media and then the guys who are actually in recruiting, the guys who do it for a living, those guys aren't as confident. They have reasons to believe he's not coming to Nebraska. I'm not saying he's going to or not. I don't know the answer. I'm giving you guys reactions to stuff I hear and stuff I see, right? So don't take what I'm saying and be like, well, Connor said Michael Terry's coming or not coming. I have no idea. Same on Cortez Mills. If I had to guess and I had to put money on it, I'm saying Cortez Mills comes. But I don't know. I could be wrong. It's really tough. Someone says Fedoni, you should enter. And then Tim right after says Fedoni needs to stay. Interesting about the tight end room because, you know, the tight end room actually is pretty deep. You've got Borkacher, Fedoni, Luke Lindenmeyer, and then who else is in that tight end room? Nebraska roster. Let's find out real quick. I just want to see what's going on with the tight ends. I'm not implying that any of those guys should leave or stay because I don't know. I don't know what they should do. They should do what's best for them, in my opinion. Tight ends. Here we go. You've got Luke Lindenmeyer, who has been a key piece, especially as a blocker. He's had a few opportunities to make big catches. One of them was just overthrown barely. Would have been the game winner against Illinois. But Lindenmeyer's had a huge uptick in production over the last year. He's gotten utilized by this staff a lot more. So I think Lindenmeyer's here to stay. A.J. Rollins, I don't know what's going to happen with him. Nate Borkacher, stud at the end. I love Nate Borkacher. I think he's built well. I think he's fast enough. I think he's strong. And I think he's a good receiver, a good hands guy. So I would love for Nate Borkacher to come back. You've got Ian Flint, who is a freshman this year, and Eric Ingwerson. I think Thomas Fedoni has 1 year to decide what's going to happen. If he wants to be a feature tight end, if we're being honest, he needs to go somewhere with less tight ends in the room because the way Nebraska's been working these guys is they rotate them quite a bit. I forgot. They've got Mac Markway in the room who just walked in the middle of the offseason, close to, actually, it might have been like right before season, from LSU. And he played a bit at LSU. So you've just got a flooded room. If Thomas Fedoni wanted to be a feature guy, he probably goes to a school with less tight ends. But yeah, I don't know. It's tough to know since there are so many tight ends and so many guys who can make an impact at that spot. It's going to be an interesting position battle this year, right? But for a lot of spots because you have a new offensive staff and you don't know who they're going to favor, what they look for. And yeah, there's going to be a shakeup. And there are going to be a lot of new names who come in. A lot of excitement on the way. That's all I'm saying. Pete, thank you for the $5 super chat. T-Knight, Lenhart, Van Poppel, and Shavers were at practice. No Prince Will or James Williams. Hopefully, players are just testing the waters. Yeah, and that's all we can say, right? Hopefully. No freaking idea how it's all going to shake out. The idea that T-Knight's still there and James Williams isn't is conflicting with a lot of our beliefs. A lot of fans think that they're tied together, right? So why would one be there and one wouldn't? And, you know, it's just kind of a who knows. We're going to have to wait and see. And regardless of what happens, I'm still optimistic about whatever Nebraska or whatever Matt Rule does going forward. Sergio, thanks for being a member. He says, Javen Wright won the Big Ten Sportsmanship Award. I didn't see that, but that's awesome. You know, Javen Wright dealt with a ton at Nebraska in terms of his blood clot issues, basically had an injury for a while, and it was unfortunate that he wasn't able to play. But when he did, he was a stud, big body, athletic, and glad he got awarded something for that, for at least being able to come back. Jim says if all the defensive players in the portal, I believe a case could be made for Florida State tampering. Well, it's tough, right? How much tampering is there versus how many players automatically know they want to go play for their former coach? And we don't know what's going to happen. Keep in mind, everything we've talked about for the last 2 days is a who freaking knows. We've got no idea what's going to happen, but we do know that Nebraska is going to try and retain their guys. And if they end up leaving any, it's probably going to be because they just want to naturally follow that coach. It's all about them deciding that they know that they want to play for this guy and we're going to go with him. And it kind of just is what it is. I don't know if it's tampering. That's kind of my point. If it was tampering, that would come from other schools like a Texas A&M or like a Georgia or a school that has no ties to a Nebraska coach already, because a Nebraska coach would just go and a guy would follow. Kind of like Dion and his kids. Was there tampering going on with Colorado and Dion and Shador or Travis? No. It was just when he came, they obviously wanted to come. Got a bunch of stuff popping up on my Twitter. I'm just trying to make sure I'm staying on top of everything popping in. Let's see. Silver Cloak says Foley isn't going anywhere. He is being groomed to take over for Rule. Silver Cloak, you're just looking to trigger people. You're looking to piss them off, bro. So funny. Let's see. We're talking about Nelson. We're talking about Borkature. Brett says they're completely using Fedoni wrong in every single way. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Fedoni was supposed to be a receiving tight end in my opinion. I think you had they were 3 totally different body styles and different athleticism between the 3 who they used the most this year. And it felt like they used them all kind of in similar ways. Let's see. Starman, he says, just joining, and I may be overly optimistic, but am I crazy to not be overly worried about all the players leaving? No, I don't think you're crazy to not worry about that. I don't think there have been anyone or has been anyone who's entered that's irreplaceable or someone you look to and you're like, man, that's going to be such a big loss. It could set Nebraska back for years. If you saw Ja'Cory Barney's name pop in, or you saw Dylan Raiola's name pop in, or you saw someone who's made such an impact that Nebraska's going to go and it's a player that Nebraska's been already building around. And they're going to have to go and find someone else to either replace them or they're going to have to change up the way they're doing things, their scheme specifically. That's somewhere where you're like, man, that one hurts. But everyone else, in theory, is replaceable. Yes, they all freaking hurt. I promise you, they all freaking hurt. But, don't get too upset yet. Let's see. Just checking text to see what other players are leaving. There are other names. I actually have 2 texts on my phone right now with 2 others. Let's see here. Josh says Carter Nelson likes that he got snaps in Iowa and he's ready to go next year. Yeah, I was worried about Carter Nelson at points before he committed to Nebraska. There was reason to be worried. I could promise you that. I was then worried about Carter Nelson again during this season. And it wasn't only Carter Nelson. There were multiple players to be worried about this season on the offensive side of the ball. And I think the change was so positive and so it inspired so much hope that it eased my nerves. And now, like you said, Josh, he's excited. He's ready to roll. That's my take. I think Carter Nelson's going to be a stud for Nebraska going forward. I think there are a lot of players. I think, the nature of college football, every player's on a 1-year deal. Every player looks at it as, if I don't get the right opportunity, or if I don't have the right impact, or if the right things aren't happening in my eyes, then I'm just going to up and leave. And that's why I don't get too hung up on like the Dylan thing. How long is he going to stay for? I think we're really lucky to have him for a 2nd year. We'd be really, really lucky to have him for a 3rd year if things didn't go his way. But 1-year deals. So just hope to make it through the offseason, rebuild your roster. Actually, Vince Lindenmeyer sent me a TikTok today of Luke Lindenmeyer. And it said something about the worst part about the transfer portal. And if you slide through, if you just go on TikTok and type in Luke Lindenmeyer. But anyway, if you slide through each slide, it says the worst part about the transfer portal isn't that all my teammates are leaving. Like that part sucks. But the worst part is I never get to be a part of a team for more than 1 year. You know, it's like all these guys leave and it doesn't feel like there's a team you're a part of. And I think back to when I was in high school and college and all the guys that I had these bonds with for 4 years, for 2 years, however long I was there. And it's like, man, you had these great relationships and no one left. It wasn't like you were bouncing around to different places. You were in one place. And I know that's obviously different from college football, like at a big time school, but it was a different time, you know? And now if you're in high school, guys transfer in high school like crazy. I transferred in high school. But guys transfer in high school like crazy, just like they do in college for the right opportunity. Dylan Raiola went to 3 or 4 high schools. I mean, it's just a normal deal. You know what I mean? So let's see. Bands, thank you for the $5 super chat. The portal is going to be a nightmare for players. NCAA limiting rosters, and the portal is overflowing as it is. Man, if you're a player, it's a tough time to be a player right now. It's a tough time to be a high school player. It's a tough time to be a junior college player. I don't know where things are going. I don't know, what the future holds. No one does. It's always changing. But you just kind of enjoy it and embrace it for what it is today. And hopefully all of this gets fixed and there's a more common sense approach to building rosters and to allowing players to play, and the money is in check. Hopefully all of these things get worked out in due time. But right now it's just mass chaos. And there are a lot of players who, if they're going to hit the portal from other schools, and before they would have been like, oh, well, I'm just going to go walk onto the school, worst case scenario. Now they're going to have to go bounce back to a lower level, go to Alabama A&M or, somewhere that we've never heard of. So let's see. Richard, thank you for the $5 super chat. Will Matt have a press conference before the bowl game? Absolutely. I believe Matt will have a press conference tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow's Wednesday. So after signing day, I think he'll have a press conference. We'll get to hear from him. And I'm sure that will be an eventful conversation. Matt Rule is so smart in the way he speaks, and everything is flipped into a positive, and it always leaves you feeling a bit more confident about what he's doing. And although there might be chaos and flames going up around him, and it might feel like the end of the world is upon us, he finds a way to calm it down. Or he fires off a new piece of information that makes you think, holy shit, what's this guy got in his back pocket? Once again, Matt Rule to the rescue, It's always been the vibe with Matt Rule, and that's something that's so attractive about him. He inspires confidence in every scenario, even when times are tough. I remember when he was talking about just a few weeks ago, Dana Holgerson, and he was talking about how, yes, the offense didn't go our way, and there were some issues, and we were stressed out with what was happening, and I didn't know what was gonna come of these next few weeks. But now I'm learning from him, and now I'm realizing that we're going to be a better team for these reasons, and I'm still in the process of trying to figure out how to run and manage a better offense. And because he's saying all these things, it's making us inspired and excited. Like, okay, he's acknowledging the flaws and the bad, but he's recognizing where things are going to be good. So yeah, I'm excited. Let's see. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central is Matt Rule's press conference. There you go. 1 p.m. Central. So it'll be 11 a.m. my time. Perfect timing. I can go to the gym, come home, pop on that presser. We'll already have some of the guys signed. We'll be in the game. Let's see. Why is Colt McCoy announcing Nebraska games is pretty funny. Colt McCoy shouldn't be announcing, period. It was funny. We all got away from the Colt McCoy stuff because Nebraska lost that game. But if Nebraska would have won that game, we would have probably been talking a little bit more about Colt McCoy and our complaints. Colby, thanks for being a member. He says, what are your thoughts on the possibility of Sue taking on some sort of role on the coaching staff if T. Knight leaves? He's mentioned he wants to be on the staff. I haven't heard anything about that. I know nothing about that. I would be interested to see it, but I don't know. I mean, is he a guy that really wants to coach? If this is true, then maybe Nebraska gives him a chance. Why wouldn't they? He'd be a great recruiting piece, and obviously he has extreme experience on the defensive line for his entire life. So yeah, I think it'd be cool. Give him an opportunity some way. Let's see. JJ says this many transfers seems like it's more of an internal issue than players following a position coach who's leaving. I hope I'm wrong, but that would be worse. We're back to a rebuild year. I agree. It's pretty interesting. I'm not sure what it means or why it's happening. Doug, thanks for being a member. Thank you for the $5 super chat. He says, with the portal being this full, coupled with the limit, there are going to be players that will have to just quit totally. The cascade in full effect. I think if you're talking about, it's harder when you're talking about the top guys in the country, right? Say you're a former 4-star, 5-star player, even a 3-star player, and you're at Auburn, and then you want to bounce back to a smaller school or a lower division. I think your worst case is you're going to end up in Division 1 AA, or you're going to end up in, probably even D2. I don't know what level you don't get scholarships anymore. Is D2 no scholarship? I know D3 is. Well, no, D3 also gives scholarships to some degree, because I had guys who I knew get partial D3 scholarships. So I don't know. I think some guys will quit, because if you're not playing at the highest level, what's the point? Just go and start your life because you're not going pro. But it does. There's always a response when you have something like that. So that's going to be the response. Less players, less guys getting opportunities. Let's see. Daniel says, Tony is making a play for head coach at FSU within the next few years, his hometown school. I don't know. Is he going to be on the table to be the head coach at Florida State? I'm of the belief that if the head coach at Florida State was to get fired, it would be because the defense wasn't performing well enough, and he would be going with the head coach in terms of being fired with him. So I don't know that that's the future. I do know he is trying to be a head coach. I still believe that to be true, but I don't know if that would be the location that he's trying to secure himself in a position for. Let's see. Dash Camera says, why are they paying Holgerson $1.2 million when they were paying a much worse $1.6 million? I don't know that answer. Maybe it's because of his buyout from Houston, and so because he's getting his buyout money, he doesn't demand or command as much as the last one did. I'm not sure. Let's see. Worst nightmare. I've seen your comment a bunch about this whole Cornhusker Juan thing. I don't really want to talk about Cornhusker Juan. Not really. I've talked about it before. I talked about it in the video actually a couple weeks ago when I was talking about Malachi Coleman and gave you my opinions on Cornhusker Juan. But that's kind of, is what it is. Joel, thank you for being a member. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Hey, Connor, coming in late. So sorry if this has been discussed already. Never apologize. I know that these live streams can run long. We're already at an hour. So, I just talk and talk and talk. And if you guys want me to readdress things, I have no problem doing so since people come in at different times. But you're saying, but can't entering the portal just be a way to keep your options open as a player or to renegotiate your NIL, GBR? Abso-freaking-lutely could. I think the fear is that with the amount of guys who have entered the portal, not every single guy is looking to do that, And if they're all willing to do that, or all trying to do that, it's like, what are their intentions? Are they not bought into this whole deal with Nebraska? Nebraska already has a pretty heavy NIL package for a lot of guys. So I don't know. Yes, you're right. I agree with this. But I think that having this many guys enter the portal, especially at key positions and guys who have been key developmental pieces, it just, would leave a bad taste in your mouth if this many guys were going and playing that game that you're referring to, especially right before bowl season when guys are still practicing for the bowl game, right? And these are pieces who would be coming back next year. So they would want to essentially play in this bowl game to continue to get better and get more film so that they can progress towards being in the NFL. So that's my takeaway on it. But 100% it exists. Like if Jamari Butler came back and said, well, I was just doing it to see if I could get more money from whoever, A&M. It's like, okay, Jamari, like whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you can say the same thing for all these guys. So could be, not expecting it, but who knows? Let's see. Doug says, On3 isn't showing as many transfers as 24/7 Sports. Any others that are reliable and quick to update? I think all of these websites are kind of just getting back in the rhythm of uploading names, and it'll take a few days to get them on. So I'm not even checking. I'm sure there are a bunch of names in there, but like you said, they're not updating as fast as you'd want them to. So I think the portal officially opens December 9th. By December 9th, we should have a really good idea of everyone in. I mean, there'll still be more entering, but we'll have a much better idea, and those sites should be pretty full. But right now, I think it's still pretty hard. Starman says, on the positive note of maybe bringing in transfers, thoughts on Kentucky wide receiver Barryon Brown. Might be a good get at the position for Rule, in my opinion. I think he'd be a solid one. Started as a true freshman at Kentucky, had over 600 yards. We talked about him earlier. 500 yards as a sophomore. I think 300 or 400 yards this last season. Obviously, Kentucky transitioned quarterbacks. They were rocking with, oh man, what's that dude's name? Not Van Dyke. Dude, I don't even want you to tell me his name. I have to look up his name. He came from Georgia. Kentucky quarterback. Vandergross? Brock Vandegrift. I was so damn close, man. Anyway, Brock Vandegrift was his quarterback, and Kentucky just, they lost a lot of close games. They beat Ole Miss, but anyway, the point is, yes, if he enters the portal, he'll be a target, in my opinion. We'll have to see. Brandon says Holgorsen is getting $4.5 million no matter what next year, whether we pay him or Houston pays it. So there you go. That's why he's getting less money than Satterfield, which totally makes sense. Brett says, Connor, what bowl game do you think is most likely right now? I don't know. Honestly, I have zero idea. There are so many that have been talked about. Pinstripe in New York, which would be in Yankee Stadium, I think, right? The Rate Bowl in Phoenix, which I think is played on the baseball field, Diamondback Stadium. Then you've got the Music City Bowl in Nashville or the Mayo Bowl in Charlotte. The Mayo Bowl would be against an ACC team. The Pinstripe Bowl, would that be against an ACC team as well? I believe so. The Music City Bowl would be against an SEC team. The Rate Bowl would be against a Big 12 team. So, I mean, I thought it was going to be the guaranteed Rate Bowl forever. I thought that's, if Nebraska finished 6-6, that's where they would end up, and they would play against like a Texas Tech or somebody of that caliber. Or maybe even a Baylor. No, not Baylor. Baylor ended up winning, I think, like 8 or 9 games. So, yeah, anybody's guess. It's a toss-up. We'll know on Sunday. There's going to be a bowl selection show on Sunday after the conference championship games. But right now, it's, total guess. Alan, thank you for the $20 super chat, and thank you for being a member. I appreciate you. Holgorsen is getting about 4.5 from Houston. 2.7 year 2, and then they still owe him $8 million after that. Jesus. So then the total number you're saying would be 8, 12, 14 point, no, 15 point what, 2 million? Jesus. They owe him a lot of money. Holgorsen's never going to have to worry about money, I'll tell you that. Let's see. Looking at some other texts I have. I'd like to keep you guys up to date. So most projections, it says, is the Pinstripe Bowl. If you go and look online, most people are saying Pinstripe Bowl, which, wait, let me see what he said. Pinstripe Bowl's against who? He said ACC? Pinstripe would be against ACC. So ACC would probably be like Pittsburgh or a Louisville. Let's just look. ACC standings. ACC. Okay. So here you go. It'd be like Virginia Tech in the Pinstripe Bowl, NC State in the Pinstripe Bowl, Cal, North Carolina, Boston College. Oh, sorry, I didn't share my screen. I apologize. I like to keep you guys in the loop. So these are the most likely ones, in my opinion. Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Boston College, NC State, UNC, or Cal. Cal's probably pretty unlikely since it's all the way across the country, but Pinstripe Bowl versus one of those schools I just mentioned. If it was going to be the Mayo Bowl, I think it would be either Louisville or maybe Syracuse. Maybe Duke. Duke could be in the Mayo Bowl as well since that's in North Carolina. But those are the most likely matchups for the bowl games. Anyway, Alan, I didn't want to discard your message so quickly. But yeah, Holgorsen's getting a lot of money, and he'll never have to worry about money, that's for sure. Alex says, any update with Knighton? Last I heard he was involved with the coaches meeting where White wasn't in. Yeah, no update yet. The kind of key trigger was James Williams, and James Williams entered the portal. But there's been nothing else about Tony White, and there haven't been any other players who've entered since. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on with Terrence Knighton. Wish we knew, but right now, no update. Keep it posted. Dakota, thank you for being a member for 26 months. Score prediction for the Big Ten championship game. Ooh, that's a great question. Let's look at the Big Ten championship game really quick. Yes, man. Oh, the playoff ranking came out. I didn't know. So new playoff ranking has Oregon at 1, Texas at 2, SMU at 3, Boise State at 4. So long as Boise State can beat UNLV, a team they already beat this season by 5 points in their own stadium, as long as they can beat UNLV at home, Boise State will secure a top 5 seed. It looks like. That is insane. So Boise State, man, getting a bye in the playoff seems like BS to me, if I'm being real with you. But at the same time, they went toe-to-toe with Oregon, and they only lost by 3 on the road. So it's like, yeah, I want to knock Boise State, but at the same time, they damn near went undefeated this year and beat the number 1 team in the nation, right? Tough Boise State team. At 5, you got Penn State, Arizona State at 12, Tennessee and Ohio State. Imagine that matchup. Alabama, Notre Dame, Indiana at Georgia for a first-round playoff game would be nuts. These rankings will shake up a bit because you're going to see number 5 play number 1 this week. You're going to see number 3 play number 13 or 14. I don't see where Clemson is. Clemson is... Yeah, I don't see. I have to pull it up. I haven't pulled these rankings up yet. Let me pull them up. It's the bracket. Here's the top 25. Oregon, Texas, we saw all these. Miami at 12, Ole Miss at 13, which means they're going to push Alabama in above Ole Miss and above South Carolina. For all the people who are trying to debate that, by the way, they're like, oh, well, at the end of it, Ole Miss has an argument or South Carolina has an argument over Bama, but no. Playoff committee prefers Bama to both of those. Arizona State and Iowa State, they're going to get up here. And, man, they're going to bump somebody out. That top 12 is not finalized because either Arizona State or Iowa State is going to bump in to that number 12 spot, which could kick Miami out in theory since Miami's not playing in the game. Clemson is actually playing in the game against SMU. So intriguing. I really love the playoff format, let me tell you. It's going to be fun to watch some of these games this weekend. But what you're asking me, or what your original question was, don't want NBA, I want NCAA. Your original question was NCAA football. Why is it not popping up? Scores. Okay. So Oregon plays Penn State on Saturday night in Indianapolis. And right now, Oregon is a 3.5-point favorite. The casual fan in me, the fan who's watched both of these teams play, who's bet on both of these teams multiple times this year, says Oregon is going to win this game by 7. That's the casual fan. Maybe more. But the other fan in me is like, yo, why the hell is the spread so low? Oregon should be like a 9-point favorite. No, that's too many. They should be a 6-point favorite, though. Why is it only 3.5? Penn State has not done anything this year to inspire confidence that they can go and beat the number 1 team in the nation in a high-pressure situation. Oregon already beat Ohio State. Oregon already beat Boise, another team in the playoff. So Penn State's a good team. I just think Oregon's got more firepower than they do. And more so than firepower, Oregon has a head coach who I trust and really, really, really respect. Dash Camera, thanks for being a member for 2 years. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Scott Frost for Campus Binge Drinking Sensei. Dash Camera, why are we bringing Scott Frost into this? Scott Frost, real quick note on him. I got no issues with Scott Frost, okay? Dude's got his own issues he's dealing with, whatever he's going through, trying to get back in the game of coaching. Sounds like he's interested in that job in Orlando, UCF, the previous school he was at before he came to Nebraska. And I think that would be really awesome to let him reunite with his old, I don't know who's still there, reunite with somebody who's there and see if he could turn that program around, get them going again. Because UCF has a special place in my heart since they're a American Conference National Champion. Wait, is it? Yeah, the AAC, the American Conference National Champions back in 2017. Would love to see them get back. So Scott Frost needs to go get a head coaching job somewhere or an OC job. Do something. Scott Frost has too much talent not to be on the field. That's what I will say. Quarterback plug. Chase, thank you for being here. Thank you for the $10 super chat. You guys have seen his content on TikTok. He's been doing some live streaming. He goes out in front of the Dallas Cowboys. I don't even know what it is. They've got like this Dallas Cowboys fan experience deal, and he stands out there on TikTok throwing passes around with Riker Fife. I tap in once in a while and watch him. He and Riker have had it going on TikTok, making all kinds of content. If you guys want to see recruiting stuff, he posts it all up. But he says, Bill Belichick, the next Husker defensive coordinator. Dude, could you imagine Nebraska going and getting a name like Bill Belichick? The sound waves that it would send through college football. It would be the most Matt Rule thing to do. It would shake everything up. It would make sure that Nebraska's nationally relevant once again. It would have plenty of people rocking Nebraska offseason national championship t-shirts. I'll tell you that. Don't know that it's realistic though, but it would be hot. I would like that idea. You want to throw out a good name, that's a good one. That'd get people excited. I still am of the belief that it's going to be an internal hire. But at the same time, if it was going to be an internal hire, wouldn't they have already made that one? So since it hasn't been done yet, I'm not so sure. We'll have to see. Cameron says, I wish Bill Belichick would not come to Nebraska. You're probably right, brother. I think that most people are of the belief that Bill Belichick is probably hanging out with his 20-something-year-old girlfriend, which I have no problem. People should do whatever they want to do. But there are some crazy pictures of Bill Belichick online with his girlfriend. The dude's like, he's an older guy. Not an old man. I mean, he's 70, I think, right? 72. Hold on. My group chat loves these. Bill Belichick and his girlfriends. I want to see the one with her being a mermaid on the beach. That one was wild. Okay. So this is Belichick's girlfriend. See, he's a little busy. He can't be coaching. He's got to hang out with his young girlfriend. That's a crazy age difference. Am I wrong? Is it just me? 23 years old. Again, no judgment. Do your thing, bro. But wild. He's old enough to be her grandpa. Crazy. It's just odd. That's all I'm saying. It's just odd. And if you got a 23 girlfriend and you're 72, I got no judgment. Do your thing. People can do whatever the hell they want. But when you see it's Bill Belichick, such an icon in the sport, he's running around doing Halloween pictures. Oh, here it is. This is what I wanted to show you. This is him on the beach fishing for a mermaid for Halloween. That's wild. Is it not? That's crazy. Crazy old Bill. I love it. I love it. Let's see. Alex says, thoughts on Daniel Kaelin leaving, or was it already talked about and I just need to rewind? It was talked about, but I'm going to tell you again because I know it's a long stream and I don't want you to have to go find it. Thoughts about Daniel Kaelin leaving. I'll tell you this. Daniel Kaelin came to Nebraska with the intent that he wanted to restore the program and he wanted to be a part of building it back. And I thought that was really admirable. And it was something that a stud player like him, who had other opportunities, it was a big deal that he was willing to spurn other opportunities to come and be a backup at Nebraska to another quarterback in Dylan Raiola, who obviously would have the job over him. So I had a lot of respect for that. I still, to this day, the fact that he stuck it out and tried to make it work, think it's freaking awesome. In terms of the depth, it's a hit because Nebraska needs quarterbacks and they need players, right? They need guys who can develop and fit in the system. And if a worst case scenario happens with Dylan Raiola, someone can step in and play. So from that aspect, it hurts. But I think if you're a guy like him who seems like a really good dude, he comes from a good family, like everything you hear about Daniel Kaelin, he's a solid guy. I think it's great for him to make a decision selfishly that will benefit him in the long run. And I hope he goes and thrives and goes to a school that better fits him or a school with more opportunity for him. So that's my take. I think it's going to be a hit a little bit. Nebraska's going to be just fine. They'll reload. There are plenty of quarterbacks out there of his skill caliber that will be able to come in and back up Raiola, no problem. Obviously, TJ Lateef coming now. But I think it's better that he's going out and doing something to benefit him. So shout out to Daniel Kaelin. Let's see. Caleb says, crazy how many girls you can get with fame and money. You know, I'll tell you this. So a lot of my girlfriends are like between 24 and 33, right? And they all want guys who have it going on. And that means that they've got their life together. They aren't degenerates. They make money. They don't have to be rich, but they've got stuff going on. And they could be the hottest girls. They could have, a million followers, whatever. They're just looking for guys who are stable. Some of them are like, they've got these superficial things like they require, you've got to make $500,000 a year minimum, right? But for the most part, girls just want a guy who's stable. And if you're a guy, I know that 97% of my audience is male, and I know that over 50% of my audience is below the age of 35, maybe 40%, whatever it is. There are a lot of guys who are listening to this who are still looking for girlfriends or partners. As long as you do the basic things in life, there are unlimited girls for you. Unlimited. I'm not kidding you. And all these girls want to get married, and all of them want to have a partner, and a lot of them want to have kids. A lot of them are good girls. Some of them are jacked up, but a lot of them are good girls. So as long as you go and do the basic things in your life, you should be confident in going after any of them that you want. Any of them. I've got friends who you'd see on the street and you'd be like, that guy has no business doing XYZ. And he's with, a chick who's on TV, who makes millions of dollars, who's legit famous, popping, and he's getting her because he's got a stable life and a stable situation. So if you want a girl, you'll be able to get one. Just have a stable life, take showers, brush your teeth, and you'll be straight. Because yes, Bill Belichick has unlimited money and he's famous and all that, but that's not what they're looking for. They're just looking for stability, and they're looking for normal, and they're looking for someone who can provide that. And there are so many losers in the world that if you're competent in any way, you'll have zero problem securing one. Zero problem. I promise you. Take it from me. I've got plenty of life experience in that area. And I'm in the prime. I'm 30. I'm 31. I'm in the prime of my life in terms of girls. I see it all, and I've seen it from when I was younger and older now. Never got to worry about girls. Never got to worry about having too much money or anything like that. Just do your thing. Common sense will get you there. Let's see. EM says, what's our chances with Terry? I am of the belief that Michael Terry is going to Texas. I don't have any reason to believe that. I've heard from other people who are national recruiters or even local recruiters that the read is Michael Terry's pretty locked in and Nebraska's out of the picture and has been for the last few days. But there are other people who will say, well, the recruits think this, and then the players at Nebraska think this, and there's reason to believe. And okay, I don't hear any of that, so I don't know about it. It's anybody's guess. I am going to right now say I don't think Michael Terry's coming to Nebraska. That's where I'm at. I don't know. Doug says, I'm 38, have my stuff together, and I'm still single, LOL. Doug, I'm sure it's by choice. If you have it together, and if you want to find a girl, I'm not kidding you, there are unlimited options. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm not saying it to make it sound like that. No, I'm not doing that. What I'm doing is I'm just telling you, there are unlimited options. Everywhere I go, every state I've been to, there are plenty of quality women out there. Maybe you're not finding them. Maybe you're not going to the right places to run into them. But they all want to date. They all want a boyfriend. I have issues with it. I don't want a girlfriend. So I have issues where I run into it. If you want a girl, you can get one, Doug. Zach says, where can I watch Terry's commitment? I don't know the answer to that. We can go on Twitter and probably find out, though. Let's go on Twitter. Michael Terry commitment. They did put an announcement up that he would be doing it at his high school. He'll be announcing, it just says here from Wilt Fong, he'll be announcing at 8:15 a.m. on Wednesday in the gym at his San Antonio high school. Texas and Nebraska are the finalists. Let's see if it says anything on On3. Nah, it just has his On3 profile. So I don't know how you watch it or if there's going to be anything you can watch, like a stream. Oh, here we go. Let's see what this is. Tomorrow it becomes official for the top remaining uncommitted recruit for one of them. 8:15 a.m. Wait, 8:15 a.m. What time zone? Like in Texas? So does that mean 8:15 a.m. in Texas? That's like 6:15 a.m. my time. Oh God. So in theory, Michael Terry could sign with Nebraska tomorrow. And it's going to be 6:15 a.m. for me. And I got to wake up to check. And then if he doesn't sign with Nebraska, I got to go back to sleep. I don't like that. Why are you doing this so early to me? Why are you doing it so damn early? Ugh. Rusty says, any ideas where Coleman is going? I think the candidates were like Kansas State, Colorado, Oklahoma. Those were probably the ones that were flirting with him the most and trying to offer him NIL deals. But I don't know. I have zero idea what's going to happen with Coleman. Probably going to wait and see, Wait and see what offers he gets now that the portal's finally opening. Lane, thank you for the $5 super chat. He says, with Kalen leaving, what are the odds of his receivers he peer recruited leaving with him? I don't know. That's a good question. I think right now we're only going to see receivers leave who don't have opportunities in this offense. A lot of receivers want to play with Dana Holgorsen. They're going to like this new receivers coach, you would think. He's younger, experienced, has had success with other guys. And then you have Dylan Raiola there. So why would you not want to stay? I think that if there's a guy that leaves, it's probably because he's on the outside looking in and understands he needs to get out. So that's my thought. Darren says, I'm 38. I make 6 figures in Nebraska. I have my own house, a stable job. I'm active. I've been single for 6 years. What are you talking about, Connor? LOL. Darren, you being single by choice is not my problem. You're choosing to be single if you have all of that going on. If you wanted a woman, maybe you haven't found one that's like the right fit. I will say this about Nebraska. There are less options in Nebraska that are good women. And it's not because Nebraska has like a lack of like a lack of good people or anything like that, or less good looking people. And I'm not saying that at all, but you have less options because I think a lot of people in Nebraska get wifed up really quick when they're young. The culture there is different from where I live. People here typically go and pursue their career and then they get married later. And when you're in Nebraska, a lot of the young eligible women leave. I knew some when I was younger. They went to Denver, they went to Kansas City, they went to Chicago, they went to LA. All of them, actually, that I knew. They wanted to get out as soon as possible. I was like, what are you doing living in Nebraska? They're like, no, I can't live here. For my career, I want to go live in one of these bigger cities. So I think a lot of eligible women probably don't live where you live. But don't tell me you've got everything going on and you can't get a woman. I know you could get a woman, Darren. You know it too. Telling me that you couldn't get a woman is crazy. You got it going on. They're out there. Cameron says, thoughts on why Coleman is transferring. I don't think that Coleman liked the situation with the red shirt. I think he thought he deserved to play more. And then I think there was another thing that happened. Dana Holgorsen came in and had a conversation with the press and said, I think there's a young guy who can help us right away. That young guy obviously didn't end up playing. People thought it was Quinn Clark, but Coleman probably felt slighted. Like, why am I not getting in? And I'm not saying that exact scenario, but something like that could have happened along the line this season. And he was like, dude, why am I not in? I started in multiple games last year. I've shown I can be a factor and an asset. These other receivers around me haven't done shit. And they always dropping game-winning balls. Are you kidding me? Put me in, coach. And they never put him in. So Coleman probably felt slighted and wanted to get out. It makes sense. I'm not judging Coleman for his choices. I do think that Rule had a rhyme and a reason. And I do obviously side with Rule and say if he thought it was the right thing to do and he wanted to stick with that plan, whatever, more power to him. It wasn't going to hurt Coleman. Coleman just had to wait 1 year. But when you've got people in your ear saying, hey, we'll get you on the field tomorrow. Who knows what Nebraska's going to do? They could get a new OC now. Who knows where you're going to line up with the OC? Then all these question marks start popping in your head. You're like, I should probably get out and go somewhere where I'm really wanted. And he probably didn't feel as wanted at Nebraska as he had hoped he would. So he had to leave. That's my take. I don't know. People say Coleman is lazy. I don't know that to be true. People say these things and I can't confirm that. I just think, there are other issues. Jim, thank you for the 555. If Corn Craze Army is 45% under 35, then I am finally a 1%er. Stay healthy and remain calm. I think Jim's in his 70s, right? Jim, I don't know if it's 45%. Maybe it's 40% or 35%, but you are in the 1%. I think I've only got a few guys above the age. No, I think I got a lot of guys above the age of 70, but not in terms of percentage. Probably only like 2% or something. But Jim, you're my most loyal. I'll tell you that. Out of all the age groups, you're the most loyal. Let's see. Cameron says, how much is the average house in California? I don't know that answer. I can tell you how much the average house is where I live. In Orange County, to get a house right now, like where my mom lives in her neighborhood, small house, 1,600 square feet. Older. It's not like modern or anything. Like it's nice, but it's not like some fancy house. It's $1.1 million. And it's a gated community, but it's not like a nice luxury neighborhood. It's a normal neighborhood. People driving Toyotas and Hondas and trucks, nothing crazy. It's not like people are driving around BMWs and Audis. $1.1 million in Orange County. So if you want to buy something out in LA, yeah, goodbye. If you want to buy a house like down the street from me, my buddy lives in I think his house is like, he's on the chat right now. He could tell you. His house is probably 1.5 million. It's in the hood, by the way. He'll defend it and say it's not in the hood, but it's in the hood. Driving over there the other day, there's homeless walking around outside. It's a total mess. Drug addicts everywhere. $1.5 million. I wouldn't feel safe staying there. I've made these comments to him before. He'll get mad at me. After this, he'll call me and say, why are you talking shit on my house? But he's moving out of there for a reason. But anyway, houses in California are expensive. That's why, I gotta move. It's too expensive for me to buy a house here. Let's see. PM says there's not that many semi-attractive women who have their shit together who are single. Dude, we could run through my Instagram right now. I have tons of beautiful friends. Beautiful. And they're like all kinds. Some are OnlyFans girls, obviously, so different. Some guys aren't into that. Some are like influencers. Some guys not into that. But like in LA where I live, it's funny. That's the other thing. I live in a place where no one gets married and no one has serious relationships. So all of these girls complain to me, Connor, I can't find a boyfriend. Like every guy I talk to just wants to hook up, and every guy I talk to isn't serious, or they want to date super young girls, and I'm 28 and I'm like aged out, or whatever their nonsense is. There's unlimited opportunity. I'm not kidding you. I could set up a dating site with all the girls I'm friends with. Get you guys all on there. Start charging access to my network of girls who are single. I'm not kidding you though. In LA and Miami, it's unlimited single and hot. And have their shit together is a strong word because there are so many variations of that. Like if we're talking about ones with like a stable career versus ones who are doing some other things and have, different lifestyles, it's all different. Everybody's got their own cup of tea, but they're out there. I promise you. I talk to them all the time. They complain all the time. And I get it because none of my friends will date. None of my friends will take them seriously. All of my friends are like, screw this. I'm making a ton of money. I'm traveling around the world. I have unlimited opportunity. Why would I settle down with one? That's where all my friends are at. That's what the culture is where I live. But yeah, you guys can figure it out. Cade says this turned into a middle-aged bachelor episode. Listen, I'm just trying to give advice, okay? I'm just trying to give advice because I know we have a lot of men in this chat. And I'm not middle-aged, dude. I'm 30. I'm in the first 30% of my life. Middle-aged is like 45, okay? I'm not there yet. Lane, thank you for the $5 super chat. He says, with Kaylin leaving, oh, we talked about that one. Sorry, I scrolled up too far. Jim, I talked about that one. Where's next? Hang on, chat's got to render. There we go. Lane, thank you for being a member of the Corn Craze Army. I appreciate you. Claire says, who's the top recruit that Nebraska's going after? It's Michael Terry for sure. Michael Terry, but the most reasonable one I think right now is Cortez Mills, 4-star receiver, borderline OU lock. I say borderline because it feels like he might still come to Nebraska. Committed right now, but could flip on signing day, so we'll have to see. I think the recruits feel like he's coming with them. So we'll see. Right now it's Michael Terry and Cortez Mills. Let's see. These comments are hilarious. You guys have some funny comments about women. Nothing bad, though. Jacob, thank you for the $1 super chat. He says, Corn Craze Cupid Chronicles. I love that. Let's see. Jacob defends his house. He said it's not in the hood. His $1.5 million house is in the hood. He pays $5,800 a month rent to live in the hood. I'm telling you guys, I'm not BSing you. Lives in the freaking hood. Let's see. PM says you live in an area with the highest density of attractive women in the world. Yeah, you're right. I do have to take that into account, but I travel a lot and I've seen beautiful girls everywhere I go. I travel a lot. I go all over. I will say there are a lot less when I go to Oklahoma, but to be fair, my dad's town's like 1,000 people, but Vegas has a ton. Phoenix has a ton. Kansas City has a bunch. Jersey and New York have a bunch. I mean, yeah, Nebraska's different. That's kind of the point. Brett says OnlyFans girls is wild, Connor. Brett, where I live, that's normal. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. And I know it sounds crazy because I talk to my dad about this stuff all the time. That's what's out here. Like my neighbor, I know for a fact she does OnlyFans. It's just what it is. And I know a bunch of girls who do. That's just what it is. But they're not like the gross, sketchy looking OnlyFans girls. They're like, they got like 2 million followers on IG and they're super hot and they make real money. They're making 6 figures a month. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about the ones that are just like down bad and doing it because they got nothing else going on. Let's see. You guys are talking about your houses in Nebraska. Lethargic says he could have swore that Coleman was in the transfer portal early last year. Didn't say his heart was in it at that time. Or was that someone else? I don't remember. That doesn't sound familiar. It was kind of sketchy with Coleman because I didn't know if he was going to commit to Nebraska and then he ended up coming. But I don't remember that. Let's see. Rusty's a savage. I'm 32 with 4 kids. Should I go out for milk and never come back? Rusty, what's wrong with you? You're sick. You gotta own that, bro. You gotta own that. Dre says if we don't get Mills or Terry, I'm not even worried. Dana will find guys in the portal that are proven. I agree with that. You still want to get the high school guys so you can develop, but I do agree. Dana's gonna have plenty of options, and I think his name commands so much respect right now. Plus the new wide receivers coach, who obviously has strong ties since he's a recent player. He played as recent as 2016. That should incentivize guys in the portal to want to come and play for young, cool energy. Lane, thank you for being a member. He says Connor's starting a corn crazed brothel. The main problem is instant gratification in relationships. If ever the waters get rocky, people run instead of trying to work things out. Well, that's 100% true. I think people think they've got so many options now. They don't care about the current option they got, and they're ready to move on. So I hear that. Silver Cloak says, I have no job, weigh in at 3.5 bills, love Cheetos and play video games all day. Where are all the bitches at? Yeah, I think you're trolling. I hope you're trolling. My cousin was in your boat, and he told me I had to lose weight and I had to get a job because when I was on Hinge, I couldn't meet girls. He was 315. He's 6'4", 315. So he lost 100 pounds. He's still got to get the job. He's still working on that. But yeah, if that is your case, I wish you well. Time to get your shit together. Plays says, what do you have to do to pay bills in California? It's not that bad. Like my rent right now is about all in with utilities and everything, probably like $2,200. And I have a roommate. So $2,200 for rent. And then obviously I got my other bills. Yeah, it's expensive, I guess. I think if you live in other places, it's pretty cheap. But it just costs to live like this if you're gonna live in this place, The other thing is there's more money here and there's a lot of opportunity. Like I can make money every single day here because there's so many people with money trying to spend it. A lot of girls, like I said, resort to doing their thing. And guys are hustlers. They'll do pretty much whatever it takes. A lot of people sell weed out here. I don't do that, but a lot of people do that. Now that I'm older, people have real jobs. When I was younger, that was like a hustle. Now people, they have careers. People build businesses and they find ways to make money if they don't have a career. Then they go out and start a business, or they go out and start something different. They do channels. They manage streamers. I have a friend who's managing one of the biggest Fortnite streamers in the world. Dude posted up, he had $18 million in his bank account, and that dude's managing him. And I'm like, damn. I got another friend freaking manages Aiden Ross. He was posting up with Trump. I was like, damn, these guys are really doing a lot of stuff. So yeah, these guys have different ways of getting money. It's an expensive lifestyle, but the opportunity is where I'm at. That's one of the hardest parts about leaving California, One of the hardest parts. Stank says, you say they all want to be married and have kids. Have you tried to marry or have kids with any of them? Good story, bro. Look, I'm not saying that's what they all want to do, but I have heard a lot of men say they want to be in a relationship. I don't know. I don't want that right now. It's not my deal. Going back to the Malachi Coleman deal, someone said it wasn't Malachi Coleman, it was Xavier Betts. And I do remember Xavier Betts flirting around with that and opting out. Brett says, when do you think we announce our new DC? I don't know that answer. That could be as soon as tomorrow. It could be as soon as the bowl game, It could be, let's wait and see how the bowl game preparation goes and then let me make a decision later on. I don't know how that'll pan out and what his plan will be, so too hard for me to make a prediction. That's the problem. I can't make predictions when it's just a total guess, Tim says, my one gripe, can we have one formation dedicated to short yardage, power I or Maryland I? They did have that formation this year where they stacked it up. Ty Robinson led the way at fullback. They had 3 backs. I think it was 3 total backs, or at least 3 people in the backfield. And I thought that worked. So I think they could do that again. We'll have to see. SJ says, is the Kentucky guy bringing in any receivers? Way too soon to know. He hasn't even been announced yet as the receivers coach publicly. So that's going to be a wait and see. If we get Terry and Mills, would they be the starters? I don't think you would start 2 true freshmen, but I think they could contribute. But I don't think you could start 2 of them. Let's see. Huddle Highlights says, why wasn't your cousin playing for us? That's pretty funny. He wasn't athletic. That was the problem. He was not athletic. Worst Nightmare says, are you moving to Nebraska? No, I'm not moving to Nebraska. No plans of that. Cameron says, born and raised in Nebraska, moved to Oklahoma. Not a smart move. Well, you always got the opportunity to move somewhere else. That's the beauty. Connor, I like a girl and I'm a freshman in high school, and same with her. What should I say and do? You should talk to her. You should just talk to her. You should tell her about your hobbies. You should get hobbies. That's your first step. Get hobbies and get things that make you interesting. I think the number one thing you can do as a young man is to make yourself stand out. And most guys do the same shit. They play video games, they drink with their friends, they party, they participate in degenerate activities. If you go out and do things that are fun or interesting or make you unique, you're automatically more attractive. So if you're a singer, if you're into music, if you're into art, if you got something, if you're into content, if you do something that's different or makes you stand out, automatically that girl's going to want to have a conversation with you because you're interesting. The worst thing guys can do is not be interesting to other women or even other people because you're not fun to be around. You're just kind of the same person, that I talked to yesterday. So when you're unique or you have some story to tell or you have some unique offering, that automatically makes you more attractive, I think is the best way. So I think you got to go and get a hobby. You got to go and develop some skills. You got to be interesting and then just talk to the chick. Ask her a lot of questions. That's another thing. Most women want to talk about themselves. So you got to ask them a lot of questions and make her just talk. What's crazy is if you do that a lot of the time, you don't even got to talk about yourself or be interesting because she'll just be happy she got someone who's listening to her. I promise you it works. I promise you. Chase says, where are you moving to? I think right now I'm going to Arizona. I haven't pulled the trigger yet. I'm going to kind of just figure it out as I go. But right now it's Arizona's in the lead. Does anyone know the real story on Evan Cooper? No one ever found out, man. No one ever found out. Let's see. Dash Camera says that Sports Illustrated says he's the new wide receivers coach, I think. Yeah, it's just not announced by Nebraska yet. So until it's announced by Nebraska, I don't know that we'll figure it out, like what guys he can start recruiting. They got to get him signed, sealed, and delivered and posted to the public. Remember when Nebraska had 5 wins and still got into a bowl game? That was cool. That was a good season. We got really excited. Hear me out. Kevin Concepcion out of the portal. He's going to go to Colorado, Auburn, or Kansas State, I heard. Those are his first 3 he's going to go check out. Caleb says, solid advice. You should have a dating advice podcast for real. If I did something and talked about dating and girls and guys, I kind of want to do like a connections deal, like where I introduce people and I kind of moderate. That'd be fun. Stank says, Arizona cost of living will be less than half. You should leave for there now. I know. I'm going to pay the same amount I'm paying where I live right now to live in a 2-bedroom by myself in Arizona. How crazy is that? Insanity. Anyway, okay, guys. Well, it's 6 p.m. We've gotten through a ton of chat. We've talked and covered a lot of topics. I had a great time. Either tomorrow, we're going to go live again, it's signing day. We might have to go live again for a 3rd day in a row. We'll kind of feel it out. We'll play it by ear, and we'll play it by ear tomorrow. And if I think it's good to go live and you guys are going to want to listen to some things I have to say, we'll do it again. I had a great time with you tonight. Thank you for participating in the chat. Thank you for all of the ideas and things you have shared with me tonight. I love your guys' contributions. It's what makes the show fun. And now it's 6 o'clock, so I got to go make some dinner and get on with my life. But again, thank you all for being here. I want to sign off with this. Everyone today was saying that I was overreacting and that they called me a crash out and all their nonsense. And I promise you I'm not. I'm a level-headed, reasonable guy. You guys know this about me. I can acknowledge when things are in flames and when it's a huge problem, while at the same time saying things will get better. Matt Rule has a solution and it'll all work out. Yes, there's a fire. Matt Rule has a fire hose. Let's get to it. But no, I'm not a crash out. And no, I'm not tripping. And no, I'm not over exaggerating. And no, you don't need to come to Twitter to light me up and tell me how you think I'm going crazy and I'm all bent out of shape. I'm reasonable. I have common sense. You know this about me. With all that said, thank you for being here. And I will see you in the next one. Go Big Red.